Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome or welcome back, as the case might be. My name is Dalibor Petrovic. I'm the founder of the Summit Leadership Alliance and host to these TechTonic Conversations. Today, on this fine Monday, May the 5th, 2025, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back one of the most impressive Canadian technology executives, Sonia Brar. Sonia, lovely to see you. Welcome to TechTonic Conversations.
Thank you, Delabor. So excited to be back, mostly because I'm, really excited about the community that you're trying to create amongst technology leaders in Canada. So super excited to be here. And also, I've been listening into some of your other podcasts as well. It's been a great source of learning and collaboration in the community. So
Thank you
thank you.
very, thank you very much for those kind words, Sonia. You're right. We're coming back. We had a conversation, I think, about a year ago, and so as you recently joined the city of Toronto as the Chief Technology Officer, and I'm so much looking forward to hearing from you now. What's the latest? What's the update? For the audience members, if you enjoy this content, of course, and if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and like. Therefore, you will get notified when I post new content. But if you're following us live today on this Monday, please feel free to submit any questions you might have using the Q&A function of this Zoom platform that we are on. So with that, let's jump straight into the conversation. So Sonia, I typically do not introduce my guests. It's so much better to hear their stories in their own words. So, if you don't mind, might I ask you to maybe first start with your own story, how you navigated your life and how you navigated your career to be at the helm now of technology portfolio with City of Toronto, our largest Canadian municipality, one of the biggest cities in North America. Very, very impressive.
Thanks, Dalibor. As you mentioned, I am currently at the City of Toronto as the Chief Technology Officer. But my story started over 20 years ago when I joined, actually when I joined Bell out of my grad career. And prior to that, I had done kind of small roles as through my university career, just to dabble in technology and get a sense of what it was about. And then I landed at Bell as my first role right out of school. And throughout my career in the private sector and largely at Bell and Bell Media, I found myself in a variety of different roles. Even though I had joined the IT organization, I found myself in situations where it was about trying to really help define an issue. There were, large, complex programs where maybe they hadn't gone well or needed a rethink. And I really learned to, navigate technology through people. So it was less about, yes, it was about the technology and the solutions and how does it work and how do you put solutions together, but it was really about getting to know the people who would be using the tech, how they were thinking about it, rethinking constraints, so really opening up conversation and collaboration around kind of rethinking the solution and the constraints and what we were trying to solve. And I think I spoke about this last time as well, as really finding that edge where we actually don't know the answers. That's where I found innovation really helped,
Mhm.
building solutions that really solved the issue at hand. It was at the edge, not on the known kind of entity. And I ended up doing probably 5 to 7. I ended up changing roles every couple of years and ended up with 5 to 7 different roles through the first kind of 15 to 20 years of my career. Each one of them had the same kind of construct around it, which was, find the edge, try to bring people together around the unsolved problems, and think about how we can just rethink how we approach it. And it's been an exciting career. For me, it's been full of discomfort, to be quite honest,
Well, since
because
everything is on the edge, of course, this is exactly the point, right?
it is,
That's the
and it's
space, right?
uncomfortable. We talked about this prior to this. You feel like you're up against the grain of culture,
Mhm.
up against the grain of a business. But really, it's in that discomfort is where you really grow, and really innovate.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So you said 15 years. So I'm following now. You said 5 to 7 different roles while you were at Bell
Yes,
for a stretch of about 15 years,
almost 20 years. Yeah,
almost 20 years.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's very dynamic.
hmm
Yeah.
And largely in technology. The first kind of 10 years was in the core telco business. And then when we bought CTV and Industrial, we formed Bell Media, and which is a completely different business. And that's where actually most of my growth happened, because in telco, it was about efficiency, automation. A lot of like businesses came together. And so you're looking at standardizing, consolidating, rationalizing, driving efficiencies. When Bell Media formed, I took on the tech leadership role there. It was the complete opposite. It was a
Mm.
people-based democratic organization. It was
Interesting.
about, freely getting information out there, whether you think about news or sports or even entertainment. How do you provide access to Canadians around the information about their culture, what's happening in their communities? And and that served like inside as well. So you really tap into your people to figure out what's meaningful and how do you build solutions that really continue to provide that democracy of information
Yeah, yeah.
and really kind of build that business, whether it's with your viewers or it's with your advertisers. And so it really, it got me thinking through, instead of operational excellence, it was really about the human experience and technology truly as a tool, not the be
Mm.
all and end all, but a tool to that human experience.
Yeah.
So I really value kind of, I spent about 6 years with Bell Media and really value my time there because I think it really brought out a different dimension in myself as a technology leader to really complement, kind of the hardcore tech.
That's really that's fantastic. And then from Bell Media to City of Toronto.
Well, I did a
Ah,
couple years actually as customer experience strategy. So I completely got myself out of technology and supported the consumer business on their customer experience strategy. So the two really came together because again, it pretty much is a high tech business. So anything you
yeah,
do needed to have that digital component. So I spent a couple of years doing that, and then I landed at City of Toronto. And I do think it's the three tranches of experience that really opened up this opportunity with the City of
yes.
Toronto, which again is, it's public sector. It is all about how you deliver service to your residents and to the businesses around the city. It's how you really enable your people because they are the front line who are interacting with our residents and really trying to drive policy or technology to help deliver service. And so I think it really is accumulation of experience that brought me to the City of
To
Toronto.
the city, yes. And of course, as we all know, the City of Toronto, of course, the largest municipality in Canada, superbly complex organization. Uh, you
It
you you
is.
you came about a year and a half ago, if my calculation is correct. And I remember when we originally spoke, there was high ambition, a lot of exciting things that
Yeah.
could be done. I would love if you could maybe share with us how are things progressing and what's sort of the update on, the city's digital strategy, data focus, technology integrations, those kind of things. What can you share?
Yeah, so I would say the first year and a half, Dalibor, was really spent on understanding some of the challenges, the pragmatic challenges at the city, because there are a lot, and like you said, complex organization. I mean, we serve almost 3 million people. We've got 50 different divisions, and in fact, I just learned this number recently. We provide over 600 services if you really count the discrete services.
Yeah.
And we're a city that is highly diverse. So, often you get asked like, okay, well, what are the other cities doing? Well, it's really tough to find any other like city because they might be as large, they might provide the similar number of services, but they're not as diverse. Like we are over 50% of our residents speak a different language. We've got, variation in our economic background. So there's a lot of diversity in the city. And so the first year and a half was really appreciating what is it that matters to the city and what's the state of the service delivery around the city. What are residents, really concerned about the most? where might we be missing the mark as we're trying to do service delivery? Where are we actually doing really well? So it was spent on, let's just get back to fundamentals.
Yeah.
We need to say what we're going to do, and then we're going to do what we said, and we're going to be very transparent about our learnings along the way, and what we're able to accomplish. So this was, very simple automations. How do we do program delivery? Making sure our infrastructure is in good state of good repairs. We're collaborating with the CISO and making sure that, cyber is at the forefront. And that's been the heightened focus there. We put in a scorecard, so we're measuring our success and we're declaring where, maybe we're not. So that transparency really has driven a high degree of trust across the city with my peers and with each of the divisions, because look, we're gonna hold hands as we go down this journey. We're gonna advise. And we're going to be, side by side when we're delivering new services. And in the last kind of couple of months, we've kind of gone from, rebuilding that trust and our fundamentals to now exploring more kind of, innovation. And the discussions really taken us to how do we leverage our enterprise data more effectively, put in a governance model more effectively? How do we start to really experiment with AI, which was a scary word.
Yeah.
Still is a bit of a scary word
Yeah.
because it comes with a lot of implications around the ethics, data privacy, and security. And we're taking that into consideration and really collaborating with our stakeholder groups to make sure those again are at the forefront. But the good news is we're getting a lot of good support to really push the bar there and to find ways to experiment, find ways to innovate using AI and data across the city, which was not happening a year ago.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, when you reflect on this year and a half, and you said you spent the first year assessing the situation. Um,
And delivering, not just assess.
yeah, of course. No,
No
of
one
course.
gets a year to assess, but
Go,
yes,
go,
doubling
go.
down on delivery. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, what were the key sort of lessons learned in the process? Like, anything you can share on those? I completely understand the focus on
Yeah.
making sure that you know what's going on. Focus that infrastructure is stable, that cybersecurity is paramount, that quality of service delivery is there, that we are honest and transparent in things that
hmm
might not be going well, that this rebuilding of trust. Any other sort of lessons that you garnered through the last
Yeah.
year?
I think the biggest lesson, Dalibor, is simplicity is key.
No.
And, I think we often look at more complex solutions to a
Yeah.
very simple problem. And I'll give you an example. So at the
Yeah.
forefront of what our residents are asking us for is, hey, I called in for, or I put in a request to fix, a pothole or, fix a tree or my garbage didn't get picked up, et cetera. And then I just simply don't ever hear back again. The work might have happened, but I
Yeah.
simply did not hear back again. And the crux of the challenge there is just bridging our solutions so that there is this feedback loop, right? Which we're calling closing the loop to say, hey, got your request, it's gone through, somebody's been dispatched, it's now complete. And making that as seamless as
Yeah.
possible. And, there were years of programs around this to kind of fill in some of the gaps around technology, but really taking that end-to-end kind of close the loop approach to it is all we needed to do to really
Yeah.
address it. And now that's where we're focused is
Mm.
anything we put in has to, at the end of the day, close that loop back to the resident, which is not
Yeah.
necessarily a high-tech solution. It's a mix of culture, of people, of process, along with tech. So it's simplicity is really key in this day and age to addressing some of the challenges. And, part of I think what the team deals like everyone wants to jump to, well, do we need AI? What's the solution we need to solve for this? And it's like, actually, no, we need to right size a solution back to what the ask is. And that's been a really, really key learning. And it's driven a lot of success in being able to implement some of our solutions over the last year.
Yeah. I love that, by the way, and I 100% agree with you. Simplicity, like I have Steve Jobs here over my left shoulder behind me. Like that was his
I see
mantra.
them.
Absolutely. Then that's the ultimate in sophistication at the end of the day, right? So
It really is.
if we can make the services seamless, intuitive, simple, I think that really is that's ultimately that's beautiful and ultimately the objective. Now, Sonia, I wanted to ask you about, obviously you're a very credible, experienced executive across multiple industries. Has there been any pivotal moment in your life and career that kind of shaped your approach to leadership?
Oh yeah. I think, I mentioned it in my experience. I think it's when I did that work with Bell Media. And I had kind of 10, 12 years of experience prior to that in different technology roles. They were all about integrations. They were all about, standardization, consolidation. Like it was very operationally efficient. And, how do you really put in robust, almost ERP-like systems across the board? And, when Bell Media came on the scene, the kind of corporate approach was the same. We just got to get in there, kind of, understand the business, see what we can do to consolidate, rationalize into some of our core capabilities. And a little bit of that happened because you do have common functions like finance or HR.
Yeah.
But really, my learning was, I don't necessarily have the solution for this business. Really, this is a people exercise. It's really trying to think about how do you ensure the integrity of their creativity, right, as people? How do you make sure the tools that we're providing augment their creativity and their ability to really deliver for their viewers and to deliver to their advertisers? And then just making sure that anything we do is advancing the human experience. And so therefore it needs to be defined by the human experience. And so here's what I mean by that. So traditionally, you might do requirements with a core 10 to 12 people. It's like they're going to represent the businesses and they're going to tell us what the requirements are, and we go off and build a solution. In media, I really truly had to bring in agile and figure out how to work with large groups of people and ensuring that they had a little piece of their ideas was incorporated into the solutioning. Because at the end of the day, they needed to accept, they needed to feel like they co-built anything we delivered. So it really did change kind of how I thought about tech leadership and our approach. I'll give you a very simple example. So, Bell Media is a very B2B business. So a lot of work with advertisers around the country. Like they, at the end of the day, are the ones who are buying, like our agencies especially, are working with advertisers who are buying properties with Bell Media. And their experience was really crappy. It was archaic. They had, they had almost like floor to ceiling shelving with their kind of paper copies of what they had bought and their reconciliation reports, and found it really tough to do business with Bell Media. And in fact, had shared the only reason why they did business with us is because we were the biggest, not necessarily the easiest. So we went through a whole exercise, my team went through a whole exercise with them directly on, as kind of an extension of our organization, how do we again build solutions that make your life easier so that you're an advocate for us, you want to do business with us, and we make sure that you have a say in how that actually happens. So taking very much a human-centered approach, and it doesn't matter if it's internal to the organization or external. At the end of the day, we're all part of an ecosystem, and just making sure that the solutions serve well for everybody in that ecosystem.
So the way I would capture this is essentially the pivotal moment was you coming to a full realization that at the end of the day, it's all about solving the problem from human-centered perspective. And if that becomes the lens through which you view everything, good things will come out of that.
Yeah,
You
and
take that,
full engagement around that. So
yeah,
it's because often we look for what's the fastest way we can kind of work through the human-centered experience, and really there is a point of view that says you need to have enough engagement with the actual people who are going to use it, not a representative, right? Because
yes,
it's
that's yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you, because that was another thing that I heard you say. It's not about having 12 people describing. It's figuring out how do I get here from everybody, and how do I create a solution that's going to be, let's say, as simple as it can be, but reflecting everybody's perspective to the degree possible.
And they
How you
co-own
strike.
it. Yep, co-own it, co-build it. Yes.
Correct. Because
Yeah.
of course, people absolutely like. all babies are pretty, but my baby is the prettiest, right? Everybody,
Yeah,
everyone wants to see their feedback reflected in the solution. How do
they
you create
do.
that environment, right?
They do. And when you think about Gen AI and AI solutions today, like they are in the they're going to be in the hands of, at the end of the day, our users or our customers or our residents. And so for them to accept and to feel assured that they can trust it, it's built with their lived experience in mind.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's a very democratic technology. Well, that level of engagement is crucial to be able to build something that makes sense and is trusted and will actually, be adopted at the end of the day. So it's an experience that's really helped me fully appreciate how to go about that and the importance of it to our success.
Yeah. Very, very, very neat. Very neat. Very neat. Um, I want to ask you about a technology trend that 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 perhaps you wish you capitalized on earlier. Anything that would fit into that category?
There is. I thought about this question a lot, and the one. So again, in the Bell Media concept, there's an ecosystem that we
Yep.
work between, right? So we've got ourselves, we've got the other media companies, because often like there's properties that change hands, or there's a culture to how we work, agencies, and also there's kind of a centralized entity that helps kind of put measurement on viewership, and there's this workflow that needs to kind of work amongst us to make sure that, the currency that we're using to really measure eyeballs is a standard currency. And it's this independent kind of third party that really measures that and it kind of works on our behalf. We at the time thought about, well, how do we standardize that and make sure there's trust built into the system, right? So modernize it, but also help trust build in the system. And blockchain was kind of the area that we thought about, tried to figure out how we would make it work, and then backed off of.
Hmm.
But now when I kind of look forwards and think through some of the challenges we're having around AI and making sure data is private, the user owns their data,
Yep.
it's going through a trusted process. Well, there's a real inherent usefulness to blockchain itself to help complement where AI can go. So I almost, when I look back, is like I kind of wish we had practiced like a little bit on a simpler use case to kind of figure out how to make blockchain really work. And because it is again a shift in culture, because then it would really help us today on how do we advance and making sure we address kind of the ethics, the privacy, the security of personalized data, right, in a very modern way. So that's kind of where my mind went to was like, man, a little bit in my part, a little bit of a misboat, but never too late, I guess.
No, absolutely. That actually very good one, very valid one, very valid and good one. And let's look forward. Where do you feel, or what do you feel will be the next big tech disruption that's upon us?
I think it's going to continue to build on, I do think it's going to continue to build on AI. Like so it's getting to better edge AI, especially when think about the city's context. A lot of what the services are baked in the real physical world, right? Like it's garbage pickup, it's moving cars across like the physical streets, it's parks, maintenance. So what can we do? What can we process and make adaptive along that edge, whether it's people out in the workforce or some of our machines, our vehicles, et cetera. So I think as compute gets better along the edge and as we learn to leverage 5G a little bit more effectively, I do think that's where the advancements are going to be, because you can immediately respond versus it coming back, someone's doing analytics and trying to figure out how to do it better the next time. It's being able to make those decisions while being out in the field. And I think it's going to, for municipalities around the world, really make a huge difference in responsiveness and adapting to conditions.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're talking about really is the operational network, the operating network, the physical things that are in the city, on the streets, your vehicles, your sensors, your traffic lights,
Yeah.
everything almost like waking up, everything becoming intelligent at the edge physically, and then orchestrating the system of information flow now between central IT and all of the devices, all of the sensors, all of the vehicles out there for a real-time sort of information gathering. Is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
describing?
because what happens today, I'll give you a simple example. What happens today around traffic even is that we do have sensors, we do have automation in our traffic lights,
Yeah.
but it still takes like human intervention to kind of assess what else is going on that maybe hasn't been picked up on,
Right.
right? So there's this mix of people versus, as well as the sensors. I'm not saying people go away because they do
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just there's a lag in how responsive we can be, and also there's always, changing conditions and they could be anything. So instead of it kind of coming back to a centralized hub and someone having to kind of sort through that and make these, calls on anomalies, it's how do you kind of
Mm,
have more of that
mm.
automation happening at the forefront to provide advice back that's already been considered so we
Right.
can make
Right.
quicker decisions.
Yeah.
The other one is kind of around snow removal, again, like programmed, and it's 80-90% effective. But what about the edge cases on kind of the 10% of, didn't expect a vehicle to be parked somewhere and now it is and I can't get around it. So I think there are situations where it'll really help us drive, more responsive conditions. The other use case actually I read about is using kind of street lights. And, street lights are programmed based on kind of lighting conditions, but imagine they could collect information on traffic as well and other weather conditions that might better refine your usage of street lights so that you can save energy. And so I think, again, this is on the edge, but it'll take us to that next level of whether it's saving energy, or getting to be a little bit more responsive to changing conditions. I think we do well on pre-programmed, but it's more on the changing conditions that we haven't thought about.
This is exciting, absolutely, and I can, you know, I can empathize with the moment that you are in, that you feel like now is the moment to actually move into that edge and start innovating, as you mentioned already. Uh, and in your whole, I think, persona feels very much like someone who operates at that innovative edge. So this is your sort of natural space. How do you foster a culture of innovation in an organization? Like, what do you do to actually get people to share this mindset and to come along for this journey, Sonia?
I think, Delabor, there's in every organization, there are people who want to innovate, right? So it's
Mm.
finding, so it is multifaceted, but finding those individuals who want to innovate, want to experiment, are willing to take, some risks around being creative. So, I always look for who is it out there that sees possibility that is different than what we're doing, sees kind of, where we can actually help to improve things through innovation and really kind of tapping into that talent and into that potential, because they're the ones that are excited about change. And they're the ones that can really help move that forward. So just giving them a sanctioned platform is really, really important. But then again, remembering not to do it in isolation, because we do need to engage the community around us who know
Yeah.
the organization, who understand today's realities, who are the ones who might be the ones subjected to these new solutions and can really help inform how to go about it. But again, it's taking people out of their day to day and putting them into like, hey, let's imagine a new reality. Now, how would we think about it differently without fully committing to it? It's more of a what if
Mhm.
exercise,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that there really isn't, any impact if it doesn't go well. But it's like, how do you get them into that what if to really kind of think about, hey, if you were to do this differently, if no constraints, what would that look like? And let's start to really imagine kind of what that new reality could be. And then I think, when you think about kind of where it's difficult or where you might see resistance to change, I've come to appreciate it's not the change itself. It comes from a place of don't want to break what's working. Operations is really, really important. The service delivery that we do today is so important. So with that group, it's really helping again on development and learning. So it's investing in their talent and skill sets. making sure that they have the tools that they feel they need to think about things differently. So safeguard what is working, but also approach it from a point of innovation, but in a very structured environment. So that's kind of how we're tackling it. Is again, call out those that are really looking for innovation. Really making sure it's not done in
Yeah.
isolation, because we do need the rest of the organization to help inform what success looks like, and then really heavily investing in learning and development within the organization to help make that shift. And that last piece has really helped on even very simple things like we're moving some of our infrastructure from on-prem to cloud. We have our team sitting side by side with industry leaders. So, they have that, hey, I'm
Yeah.
sitting beside like those industry leaders that, are renowned, they're awarded. I'm going to have an opportunity to sit side by side and really learn from them. Like that's a point of pride. And then just, being really transparent about what that journey is going to look like as they go through it. So
Very
again,
good.
very multifaceted. There's no one solution that fits
Yeah.
all, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So here is what if I was to summarize playback. So first, you're relying on people who are within the organization who actually you feel have the mindset, interests, desire to actually innovate, to move things forward. And what you're doing is you are trying to look and identify who those are and giving them really the platform to do that in a at the edge, so not separate from the rest of the organization but empowered to be maybe more free to experiment. That was step number one. Step number two, it is important to not actually sever them, but to do that while appreciating the organizational context, history,
Yeah.
priorities, folklore, culture. That's number two. So it cannot be separate. Number three, there will be people who might show up as resistant, but they are not. Might be concerned genuinely about stability, preservation of services, and so on and so forth. So not every resistance is resisting for the same reason. So identify why our people might be concerned, and then try to educate, help them understand, help them raise the level of comfort to adopt the change. Right? That was like a third step, number three, that you mentioned along the way. So that really feels to me like a recipe, right?
It is. And I think in that last piece as well is it's what does it mean to them, right? So it's kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
first principles around
yeah,
change. And typically what I have found is it's just not really sure what skill sets I have that are adaptable. So let's invest in your skill sets. Not really sure kind of what the other side looks like. Well, let's bring leaders to the table who have seen it kind of through that side. And then just around the first group is really giving a voice, a collective voice, because
yeah,
often in old cultures, like the voices get tamped down, right? And it's kind of like the common denominator is what we voice, but not the diverse voices around the table of, hey, have we thought about it this way? What if we, the what if? And so giving enough voice, I think, to that first group is really, really important. And the one piece I would also add, Dalibor, is there's a there's also a typically in older cultures, and I've worked a lot for lots of old organizations, is like, hey, does the leadership know that there could be unexpected risk, or things aren't going to go exactly as the past or in a very predictable way. So my role as a leader has been making sure my peers and the senior leadership team is well aware of what we're trying to do. What does that actually
yeah.
mean? To again give space to those unintended consequences or the unpredictable, like a little bit of unpredictability around the innovation that we're moving forward with. So because I think there is also that fear of disappointment and fear of not measuring up to kind of how we performed in the past. So I've really taken that to heart, and making sure I'm doing my job and in that communication, and making sure I'm bringing my peers along with it.
That yeah, fantastic. Actually, that would be a really important. Actually, no, the fifth step. So the fourth step was make sure everybody actually understands the value that they will personally like. Make them understand what's their personal why to go along, go for the
Yeah,
journey. What will they will benefiting. And number five, make sure that the peers and up understand and support. Right? Excellent. Like
yeah.
there's a framework for for innovation right
There we
there.
go.
Thank thank you. Uh, Sonia, we have a question. Alex is asking a question about any perspectives or lessons learned with internal development of technology versus partnering with external partners to
Mhm.
develop technology. You actually mentioned, if I'm correct, you mentioned both, like both things are happening, right? At the city.
Yes, both things are happening. And my personal philosophy is if there are industry solutions, then we should opt for industry solutions because we get the benefit of a larger group of innovation, around the world. Like a lot of municipalities are trying to solve
Yeah,
similar
similar problem.
challenges.
Yeah, yeah.
So if there's industry solutions with some of those lessons learned already baked in, some of that innovation already baked in, or we can contribute to it for the good of all municipalities, well, I do opt for that. And we have a few examples. For example, last year we launched a new recreational services booking tool to the public, and we did use an off-the-shelf solution that we invested in to really help represent the diversity of Toronto, the diversity of
Mm.
services that we bring to bear that wasn't already built in, but that's an industry solution that we did help invest in. But then there is space for internal development, and my personal philosophy on internal development is, what is high touch with the public or with our data. And so the Toronto.ca experience, for example, I think we should own because we know our public the best.
Mhm.
We know our services the best. So how do we really make sure we've got a good team of designers and developers who can co-build that and really be agile around how we deliver some of that front end experience. And then the same thing around handling our data and processes, right? It's our data is a reflection of what we value, what our residents value, what the organization values, and a reflection of our operations. So who best to really help build out our governance, build out our data platforms is our team. So that's where we kind of over-indexed on kind of in-house development and then versus off the shelf. But I do think there's a place for both.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of finding kind of the secret sauce and how to integrate the two. And we've got a couple of really good examples of where we've done that well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for that. Um, let's maybe move the topic towards tech leadership. Um, we spoke about this last time a little bit about the evolution of the role of a tech leader over the past couple of decades, and with that evolution, it's obvious like the ways success is defined also is changing. So, what I would love to ask you, maybe if you can reflect a little bit on how do you feel the role of a technology leader, the top organizational technologist, whether it's called CIO, CTO, how is that role evolving? What are you seeing? Maybe what do you feel are the key attributes that are essential now for a successful tech executive? But then, how would you define success for a
Mhm.
tech leader today versus how it would have been defined, let's say 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah, so I'll go back to kind of how I talked about my experience, Dalibor, kind of in the first or second question, right? So I
Yeah.
think, 10 or 20 years ago, it was about are we able to deliver, IT solutions? Are we able to manage an infrastructure? And, we kind of measured it by, the availability of a system,
Yeah.
and,
Uptime.
do we have the right kind of systems in place and how are they performing from a technology standpoint? In today's day and age, I think about myself as a business and customer experience leader. It's the so what that is really, really important. So yes, we're managing our infrastructure and our solutions, and we have to, like, that is what I like to call our craft. We have to be really good at our craft and make sure we've got the right expertise. But
Mm.
then my role and senior leaders' role is to make sure we are connecting it to the so what. Again, what is it that in the example I used earlier, where it's a resident calls in and doesn't wants a response to, hey, where did my issue go? Were we able to really address it? And really thinking it through is like, how do you kind of see it through to the so what and the end result is where I need to spend most of my time in making sure I'm helping my team connect the dots.
Yeah.
And I'm helping actually my peers connect the dots on where technology needs to hand off to maybe people or process, because it's those lines are getting more and more blurred. So I think that's where we've really move the role to. And so, we're sitting side by side with our divisional and business leaders. We're sitting side by side with our customer experience groups and making sure as we're looking at the digital channel or any channel, quite frankly, that it is more seamless. Whereas before it was kind of in the back office. So what does that mean in terms of, what's crucial to my skill set or any tech leader skill set? I think
Yeah.
communication, really, really important, simplifying our language. It's, again, instead of kind of how the sausage is made, is the fact that you want to talk about the output as
Yeah.
much as our craft is really important. And I do spend a lot of time, with my team on kind of service reviews and solution reviews and program reviews so that we continue to evolve our craft and our skill set. But it's our language to our business and our customers at the end of the day it needs to be very simple and transparent, right? So it's making sure that we're really overemphasizing our communication, making sure we understand the business. So what makes, the business highly, highly successful? And I actually think this is our superpower because in most organizations, IT is centralized. And so we get the end-to-end kind of horizontal purview to what matters to the business, what makes us successful as an organization and not. And so we've got that horizontal view that maybe others don't have as much. And so we're able to provide really good strategic advice around how to think through, technology opportunities, really look at common challenges that can be addressed at an aggregate level. I use this quite a bit in terms of, change leadership. One group might have figured out how to, really successfully implement change. How do I now take that to horizontally across to the various groups on how to think about change when we do digital transformation? So I think, communication, understanding the business, which we're in a very unique spot where we have that opportunity to do so. And then taking those lateral, learnings and making sure we're playing those back on behalf of the organization. Like, I think that's what really makes us strategic leaders in this day and age.
Outstanding. So essentially, net sum of it is that what I'm hearing you describe essentially is a tech executive being a peer executive to other peers, right? Engaging with them at that peering level as a strategic advisor, partner, collaborator, doing it
Yeah,
in an elegant, simple to understand language. So being able to understand the business deeply, to understand peers deeply, communicate to them so that they can actually understand. Then you mentioned understanding the consumer of the service and really being in that unique spot. You call it a superpower. I agree 100% because the visibility that tech executive can have is full and complete. Like
it is.
technology leader sits at the crossroads of every aspect of an organization.
Yeah, like you can see the trends, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, we created at the city, I created a table that's kind of the enterprise leadership team. And it's a representation of various leaders across the organization. And it's an opportunity for my team and myself to play back some
Yes.
of, hey, here's what we're seeing across the organization that is more of a trend that we want to all be aware of so we can address in our respective areas. And really kind of raise the digital literacy across the organization, raise the success of our
Educate.
technology
Yeah.
programs across the organization, and then bring forward some of the common learnings that we're seeing when we deliver to the public or when we deliver kind of operational programs. It's really helped accelerate and de-risk our technology delivery, if you
Yeah.
really think about it. And it's also helped those leaders to become more digitally literate and so really appreciate kind of their role and what we're doing to help them be highly successful in the programs that they're taking on.
So educator and evangelist and peer, like awesome. Yeah, I
It
agree.
really is special. It's a special time, I have to say, because technology is integrated into
Everything.
everything we're doing, but it's sometimes hard to appreciate, well, what does that really take and what does that really mean? And how do you think about it not just as an automation tool, but opening up new markets in a way and opening up new experiences. And this is where it's really coming to the forefront.
And like taking that what you mentioned about the superpower that technology sits in the middle of everything now, enables everything. I would say, for a technology executive who is able to master these skills you just described, that technology executive puts themselves in the right spot to actually be a credible candidate for the top job of the organization. Like historically, top
Mhm.
jobs were, set perfectly set for, your CFO or chief operating officer. The currency of the business has been money, but today I think the currency of the business is actually it's the experience. The currency of
It
the
is.
business is data. The currency of the business, that's
Yeah.
what the currency of the business is. So if you just triangulate that, to me, I think that the opportunity in front of top credible communicative executive that is a peer business so knowledgeable tech executive is perfectly fit to be a logical sort of ultimate CEO in the next generation, right?
It
That
really
to me is
is.
the promise. That is the promise to me, right?
And it's the promise is coming true. I do think so, Dalbor, because again, every company or in every organization is a digital organization because it's the preferred experience. It's actually the experience.
It is.
In
Yeah.
many cases, it's the market in many
Yeah.
cases. And even in traditional businesses, it is a preferred means of interaction. Like I spoke earlier about, a recreational kind of booking tool, which is specifically for the residents who rely on the city for affordable services. So these are seniors and these are young families, immigrant families who only have the city where they
Yeah.
can, really, get access to these services in a very equitable way. Well, we've got 96% digital adoption for registering and managing those services. And so if you really think about that in the next generation, it's going to be close to 100%. And
Absolutely.
so it really is, but really how to build that experience, how to make sure it's seamless, how to make sure it's available, it's
Yeah.
equitable. All those principles need to be integrated in our digital service delivery, which rounds out kind of as technology executive, all the considerations we need to take into account
Yeah.
when building tools.
Yeah. So, in other words, the opportunity in front of the right mindset, right technology executive profile, well rounded, sky is the limit. Like we are, I think I would say this is the career to be in today's day and age. And on that front, on that note, I'd like to ask you my final question. Now, what would be your advice to those who are interested in the career of tech leadership and tech management, tech leadership career? What would be your advice to them?
Well, it's an interesting question because we just talked about how everything is now digital.
Yeah.
So, so almost any career you go into, it's thinking through, hey, like how is, digital technology really integrated into this, right? And how much of that is going to happen? So my advice is always, pick what you're really passionate or interested in. It could be any career, but
Hmm.
think through the upcoming innovation that's going to happen because of digital and really understanding. So you can think about media, for example, like it was really hard on the industry to adapt kind of traditional media to digital media, but it's a
Yep.
skill set that needed to be learned. Yes, it shut some doors, but it opened up a lot of other doors. So it's how to really think about any industry through the lens of technology and digitization. Really, really crucial. So you can almost be in any career as long as you're thinking through what that's going to look like. And then understanding it's the basics of technology. Like at the end of the day, simply what does that actually mean? So you kind of go into it with that digital literacy, really crucial. And the last thing I'll add is, it's as much as we spend a lot of time thinking through like future tech and where we're going, and I mentioned a few things, edge AI and how do we incorporate blockchain? How do we really address some of the open questions that we still have in front of us? At the end of the day, like, tech leaders are also under pressure to produce, right? Because there's this built up hype around whether it's AI or cloud or whatever. There's a lot of investment that's gone into it. And I'm finding, even in the last couple of years, there's a lot of pressure to produce and monetize some of those investments. And this goes back to like my earlier comment around how do we get pragmatic and simple around the solutions we can build for the here and now while still evolving tech for the future. So, having really good, thought process around simplifying a problem as you think about the future, what can we do pragmatically to start to build or demonstrate like how we're putting in the building blocks today and demonstrate that we're delivering as we build towards kind of this future digital model. So I think it's a combination of things, but I would sum it up as, pick something you're super passionate about because
Yeah.
everything is going to involve, digital or some kind of technology orientation. Learn the mechanics of technology. Like it's still very important to understand the mechanics, the fundamentals, what I like to call the craft, truly at the end of the day. And then how do you get pragmatic around simplifying this, the problems and what can we do to deliver along the way, right? That at the end of the day was the crux of Agile. If you think about what Agile came around, it was, shorter deliverables, show meaningful kind of output along the way as we build towards something that's larger. Well, I think it's time we start to really double down on that and demonstrate that we can produce.
In every aspect of everything, essentially. Exactly. Love it. Love
It
it.
is, yeah.
Sonia, this was fantastic. I want to thank you very much. We are a few minutes over time. We're planning to do this in 45-minute chunks, but this was absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you very much for your time on my behalf and behalf of our audience. As I mentioned, this video will soon be on YouTube. I very much look forward, Sonia, to welcoming you back at some point in the future when there are more successes to share. And with that, I want to thank you very much and wish you a wonderful Monday.
Thank you, Dalibor. Appreciate it. Enjoy your day.
All the best. Bye bye.
Bye.